Your biggest in-state and in-conference rivals just got shocked in their season opener. With that comes lessons and opportunities for the Miami Hurricanes.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We haven't even played the week 1 games yet, but after week 0, the ACC is already wide open. Happy Monday if there is such a thing. I am Alex Stano, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for allhurricanes.com. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Football HC, a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and 100% playable offline. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today. And on this episode, we're not only going to talk about the lessons and opportunities that come from Florida State getting shocked by 2-touchdown underdog Georgia Tech over the weekend. We are going to be turning the page to week 1 because, guys, we're 5 days away from your Miami Hurricanes taking on the Gators in Gainesville. We're going to talk about the Gator matchups, and we're going to have later on in the program, our good pal Brad Taha from Canes Insight is going to join us to talk Miami versus Florida. We're going to talk about what Mario Cristobal said this morning on the Joe Rose Show on WQAM radio, including Mark Fletcher, fully ready to go, according to Coach Cristobal. Cristobal also had a message concerning the young players, the true freshmen on Miami. And yeah, guys, we have to talk about what Miami can take away from that Florida State shocker against Georgia Tech in Dublin, because there are lessons and there are opportunities that come from that. Number one being, guys, we just saw the defending conference champions, which is the team that was picked by just about everyone to repeat as ACC winners this year. Florida State, they're not only 0-1 on the season, but more importantly, they're 0-1 in ACC play. The ACC is going to be wide open this year. Miami needs to seize that opportunity. And obviously, Florida State is going to try to bounce back from what happened. Clemson, who's also up there in most of the predictions, is going to try to show that they're not on a downward spiral. I think NC State's going to be really good this year. Of course, I think Miami's going to be really good this year. So this is not going to be a 1 or even 2-horse race in the ACC. Miami has an opportunity to do what they haven't done since joining the conference, and that is win it. So Georgia Tech did us a favor, guys. And, you know, Miami, of course, they have both Florida State on the schedule. That's an every year thing. And they have Georgia Tech on the schedule this year, hopefully a revenge game from what happened last season. Number 2, the Florida State Seminoles just gave us a cautionary tale about underestimating an opponent and, more importantly, not having a plan B. And no, I don't think Florida State lost that game strictly because they underestimated Georgia Tech, because the bottom line, folks, was Florida State got beaten up. That wasn't a game where Florida State just played uninspired. Like, there were physical matchups that they were supposed to not only win, but dominate. Instead, a lot of those physical matchups went in Georgia Tech's favor. At the same time, though, it's fair to say FSU didn't look fully prepared for that game. They probably underestimated Georgia Tech. Power running game wasn't working for FSU. They didn't seem to have a plan B on offense because they probably just thought they could go into Dublin and run all over a team that was near worst in the country and stopping the run last year. And when that didn't work for them, they didn't seem to have a plan B. Okay. And obviously, when it comes to underestimating opponents, you would hope Miami would be ready for Georgia Tech this year, given what happened last year, that Miami will be very focused heading into that game. But still, seeing Florida State, who are near 2-touchdown favorites, losing the way they did, that gives Miami even more reason to be focused, because that can be a cautionary tale for any team in the ACC. Number 3, this game outlines the importance of being impeccable and being physical at the line of scrimmage. Somehow, Florida State got beaten at both the offensive line and the defensive line. And you remember before that game, Pete Thamel was on College Game Day saying, I've talked to all these NFL scouts, and they tell me Florida State's got the best defensive line in the country. How did that work out for them in that game? 0 sacks produced and only 3 tackles for loss for the alleged best defensive line in the country. And the offensive line looked very pedestrian in that game. So dominating the line of scrimmage, that's a lesson to be learned. Georgia Tech did a better job of that than Florida State. Miami obviously is going to be putting a lot of emphasis on the line of scrimmage this year. You know, people who said that Florida State have the best defensive line in the country, I don't think they do. Miami might. So hopefully they step up, and we know Miami's offensive line is going to be good. Number 4, Mario Cristobal and Shannon Dawson. They need to take notice that you cannot win big games if you don't throw down the field, or if you can't throw down the field. Now, I think Cam Ward absolutely can, and I expect Ward to be better than DJ Uiagalelei, but I think the lesson here is call plays with confidence in your quarterback. Mike Norvell was calling plays that looked like he was afraid to let DJ throw down the field. Maybe there was reason for that. Although, in that final drive when Florida State needed to score, DJ hit a couple of big throws, but missed most of his deep throws throughout the game. Most of what he was throwing was behind or at the line of scrimmage. That's not a recipe for success. So you have to allow Cam Ward to cook. I was having a text conversation the other day with Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators, he's become public enemy number 1 for Miami Hurricanes fans. But I was chatting with him, and he was telling me, man, I sure hope Mario Cristobal has the same game plan for Cam Ward that Mike Norvell had for DJ Uiagalelei, to which I responded, if they call plays like that for Ward, I might just give up on the entire season. I don't expect that to happen. I think they're going to allow Cam Ward to cook this week. Number 5, I think what happened to Florida State, I don't want to overreact to one game, so this is kind of a prisoner of the moment take, but bear with me. This reminds you, the transfer portal, of course, will always be important to supplement your roster and add important pieces to your roster, but so is high school recruiting, and high school recruiting needs to be the foundation. If you don't have a foundation of homegrown talent, then you're going to play like a bunch of strangers, which is kind of what Florida State looked like. Right? Because Mike Norvell doesn't put nearly the emphasis in high school recruiting as he does in portal recruiting. So I'm glad that Miami seems to have their eggs in both of those baskets. Miami brought in some amazing players through the portal: Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, Sam Brown, Tyler Barron. I could go on and on and on. But I'm also thankful that Mario Cristobal recruits high school like his hair is on fire, because that is how you need to find the right mix and right foundations for your roster. So, folks, I know that, we all spent several hours, maybe even a couple of days, laughing a little bit about the Florida State hype machine that met reality on Saturday at the same time. Miami has not played a game yet. So hopefully the cautionary tale of what happened to Florida State last weekend is not something that happens to Miami in a few days when they take on the Florida Gators. And oh man, this is an exciting episode. It's game week. I can say that for the first time in several months. Again, we're going to be talking about the matchups against Florida. I want to talk about what Miami's head coach Mario Cristobal had to say this morning. Some really, really important nuggets, including a certain running back who was injured in the bowl game last year, now being fully ready to play. The possibilities in that backfield to hurt a Florida Gators team that did struggle against the run last year. The opportunities are endless. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And I'm only getting started with Ultimate College Football HC. Guys, this new mobile game is tremendous. I think you're going to love it as much as I do. Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes? From recruiting players, put your loafers on, to hiring coaching staff, to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle that pressure? Here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but it also shapes the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Canes fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it's going to get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up in the App Store. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Thank you so much for making this Monday episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Guys, week 1 games coming up this weekend. Make sure you check out our conference previews, including the ACC preview that we did. Now, Florida State losing to Georgia Tech kind of turned our ACC preview upside down a little bit, but you could still check out what we had to say about all of the teams out there. It's available on the Locked On College Football podcast or right here on the Locked On Canes podcast. Check that out before you start watching all of the other ACC games that are going to be played this weekend. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and to all the audio channels, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. We are out there for you. Game week. And Mario Cristobal kicked off Gators week with an appearance early this morning, around 6:20. I set my alarm for 6:19 in the morning so I could catch Mario Cristobal at 6:20 this morning. So he was on the Joe Rose Show on 560 WQAM. Now, Joe did ask Mario about his takeaways on the Florida State Georgia Tech game, and Cristobal didn't take the bait. He said he spent very little time watching that. He said, quote, "Our entire focus is on getting our team ready," he said. He did say that, anytime you watch conference games, there are some great lessons, some great teaching points, but he said all of our focus is on the University of Florida. So, Cristobal did not want to comment on Florida State getting upset by Georgia Tech. Plus, I mean, Mario knows what it's like to lose to Georgia Tech. So there wasn't a whole lot he can say there. Miami is focusing on themselves, and I'm happy about that. In terms of the roster, Mario said we feel pretty settled on guys who are going to play and on who's going to start. Now, as far as like the hottest position battles, I'm going to be very curious to see who lines up as the starting left guard when Miami has their first offensive snap against Florida. Just based on the way the trends seem to be going, I think it's going to be Matt McCoy. I think he ended up winning that starting left guard job. And for Samson Okunlola, I think he's going to be like the first offensive lineman off the bench. He's going to play quite a bit. He may be both the backup left guard and the backup right tackle, because I think Samson would definitely be the understudy for CC Maui Noah as well. And Miami likes to cross-train their offensive linemen. So we'll see how they line up. But I think if I had to make an educated guess, I think it's going to be Matthew McCoy lining up at left guard. And the defensive secondary is going to be interesting. I think Damari Brown is going to be a starter, possibly at the nickel. You expect Darryl Porter, of course, to start, and Mish Powell to start. Markeith Williams, who is the team's leader in interceptions in practices, had 7 INTs. He edged out Mish Powell, who had 5 INTs in fall practices this year. Is Markeith Williams going to be a starter at safety? So those are some of the more interesting position battles out there. Defensive backfield. And also you could say wide receivers, is Sam Brown a starting wide receiver, or is Isaiah Horton a starting wide out? We expect Xavier Restrepo certainly to start in the slot, and certainly Jacoby George is going to start. So those two, along with left guard, are two of the more interesting things we're going to see what happens this coming Saturday when Miami lines up for the first time. Cristobal talked about the players who transferred in and how they're fitting in from a football standpoint and a culture standpoint. He says he feels very good about Cam Ward. That was the guy he was asked about, but all the other guys who transferred in. He said part of the recruiting process is finding guys who have played in similar systems, Cristobal said. And yeah, remember, I mean, Cam Ward, comes from a similar system to what Shannon Dawson runs. And then there are other players who, literally played in the past for current Miami assistant coaches. Sam Brown played for Shannon Dawson in Houston. Diani Hill and Elijah Alston played for Lance Guidry a couple of years ago. So you have a lot of players out there who are familiar, and Chevis Jackson having history as well. And also D Nick having history with Jalen Alderman, who is a former Louisville linebacker who transferred in. So there are a lot of familiarities out there. Cristobal was asked if he expects any true freshmen to play. He said, quote, "I like this. The guys who are ready to go, we're going to play them. If you can get it done, if you can help us win, you are going to play." And of course, there's going to be a lot of guys who were from the class of 2023 who are second-year players now who are going to play a lot. You know, you already had some of those guys playing last year as freshmen, like Ruben Bain and Mark Fletcher and CC Maui Noah. I'm expecting a lot more from Popo Aguirre this year, a lot more from Ray Joseph this year. Riley Williams also played a lot last year at tight end, but I expect him to have another gear and to play an even bigger role in the passing game this year. So, yeah, a lot of the 2023 guys who are in their second year are going to play, but also class of 2024s. Like, do not be surprised if OJ Frederic plays a lot in the defensive backfield. Do not be surprised if Bobby Pruitt gets playing time at linebacker this year. Cole McConaughey on the defensive line. Don't be shocked if he plays some snaps in the rotation this year. Elijah Alston. You can expect Weapon X. Also, Alston on the defense. I get my Elijahs mixed up. Elijah Lofton, the true freshman tight end. He's going to end up playing a lot, whether it be tight end, whether it be receiver, running back, H-back. That dude is a secret weapon to be unleashed. And JoJo Trader and Nye Carr, I have my eyes on them as well as guys who can help this team in the passing game and can use their speed and explosiveness, playmaking abilities to help this offense. So no question. On the defensive secondary, you know, Joe Rose asked Mario, you know, about that area being the one, you know, the media, and I've brought this up a few times. The media will bring up Miami's defensive backfield as being the question mark area. Not a whole lot of experience outside of a couple guys, Porter and Mish Powell. Not a whole lot of experience in that defensive backfield. And here's how Mario responded to that. Quote, "I hope the media keeps writing negative stuff and get our guys juiced up," he said. Now, this was probably the money quote from Cristobal's appearance this morning, because we all know, going back to that bowl game in late December, our guy who emerged as Miami's top running back throughout the season last year as a true freshman, Mark Fletcher. Mark Fletcher suffered a foot injury in the bowl game against Rutgers, did not participate at all in spring because of it. He has been participating in fall camp, but you know, we weren't really sure, like, how cautious are they going to be with Fletcher? Is he fully recovered? Is he going to be ready to go? Mario Cristobal said Mark Fletcher is all the way back and ready to play. All the way back. So that means this Saturday, Miami is going to have the services of two running backs who are over 6 feet and in the 230-plus pound range. Two of them, two battering rams. Damian Martinez, of course, who transferred in with all the fanfare from Oregon State. And Martinez, by the way, he's been one of the talks of training camp. When Miami had their first scrimmage of fall camp a couple of weeks ago, Martinez took the very first play, 60-plus yards to the house. Fletcher, of course, we've seen what he can do going back to last season. Heck, going back to his time at American Heritage, you see what Mark Fletcher can do. All the way back and ready to go. So Miami is going to have the full services this Saturday of 235-pound plus Damian Martinez, of 225-pound plus Mark Fletcher. Oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch that running game in action. Mark Fletcher all the way back and ready to play. Mario Cristobal also mentioned about not just the top two running backs, but the whole room, that he likes the way that they pass protect, that they do that very well. On his depth and his rotations, Cristobal says playing time is something that is earned. He did say you're going to see a significant amount of guys playing at certain positions. He said other positions, you're going to see a lot of the same guys. Didn't, give any indications on which positions were which, but we can probably figure some of those out for ourselves. But that we are going to see a lot of Hurricanes, he says, suit up and play this year. So you are going to see some rotations at a lot of different positions, and that's fun to watch. As far as the game coming up this weekend against Florida, Cristobal said, I am beyond excited to watch the trenches up front because it's going to be a muddy, bloody battle. And for more on those matchups, we're going to bring in our very good pal, Brad Tejeda from CanesInsight.com. And by the way, Brad's going to be hosting parties in I'm going to be in Gainesville this weekend. I'm going to be at V Pizza and I'm going to be at Capone's on Friday evening and Friday afternoon. We're going to be out there partying, having a good time. I'm probably even going to try to do a live show out there on Friday. I think our guy Brandon Olson, well, my guy, not you guys' guy. You guys hate this dude, but Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators is going to join me on location in Gainesville this weekend for a crossover episode. But I want to talk about the matchups with Florida. Where does Miami win? Where may Miami have some tougher matchups? We'll break it all down with Brad Tejeda when we come back. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. I am thrilled to welcome 5 Hour Energy to Locked On Canes because it's football season, guys, and I'm going to need that extra boost. I'm going to need that extra kick that I can get from 5 Hour. Guys, are you tired after lunch? You're not alone. In fact, research shows that more than 70% of us hit the wall after lunch. Let a 5 Hour Energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. With zero sugar, a convenient, portable size, it is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone, so try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th, and on one order cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Haven't been this excited in several months, as it is game week for the Miami Hurricanes. Hurricanes in the swamp against the Florida Gators this Saturday, and I could think of few, if anyone, better to bring on right now than our guy Brad Tejeda, CanesInsight.com. And of course, Brad, he's representing the Canes 24/7 despite being in Gainesville, being in enemy territory. Like, are you getting dirty looks this week, Brad, walking around in your Canes gear?
Listen, actually, I stopped by a few stores the last couple days to gear up for our big party we got on Friday night. And, of course, wearing Canes gear. I got 3 Go Canes in the matter of probably 35 minutes. So I'm liking it already, man. But, this week's, very big and very special to me, of course, man, up here being in Gainesville. Not only me, but the kids are going to be rocking orange and green all week especially, man. And we're just 5 days away, man. So I got the Andre Johnson wearing today, man. So I can't wait.
So heading into this matchup on Saturday, where do you feel matchup-wise Miami should be able to have advantages against the Gators?
First and foremost, I think it's got to be the running back position, right? When you look at Florida's running back group last year, this was a game on the docket before the season started where you didn't know what was going to happen to a Etienne that now transferred to Georgia, right? And then obviously a Montrell Johnson, who is now their bell cow this upcoming season, who's probably their best pass protector. And if you look at, him statistically for Florida in the last 3 years, this is a guy that's averaged 800 yards every single season and, going around 140 carries each year. So this is a guy they heavily rely on. And this is a young man that hasn't been through fall camp much. He's probably a game time decision. If I had to guess, he's probably going to be playing in this game. But even if he does or does not play in this game, we all know running back is by committee, and they just don't have any bodies that I personally feel like game one against this defense and defensive line, especially in the University of Miami. You're talking about a true freshman in Jaden Ball, who's never had a snap in college football. Jacoby Jackson, who former Gator players are comparing him to Frank Gore for some reason. And he's coming from a JUCO program. Again, another guy never played college football yet. And Treyon Webb, the only guy in their running back room that's played some significant time, but he only has 163 career rushing yards. And when you look at Miami's, haul of running backs, you got Damian Martinez that you got from Oregon State, obviously averaging 1,000 yards each year. Mark Fletcher is now 100% healthy. He's come in 500 yards plus with 5 touchdowns, and even A.J. Allen, who had 5 touchdowns last year as well and split carries with 3 other guys. So he's not, unfamiliar with, having the split rotation. And we also got some young guys that are hungry. So, I think running back right off the bat.
And what about areas where Florida could hurt Miami? You know, they do have I think Miami has a quarterback advantage, but Florida's quarterback, Graham Mertz, a lot of experience. He's got a completion percentage in the 70s. He's got a quick release. Doesn't really excel with the deep stuff, more of a shorter passing game for him. But Florida also has some good receivers, Brad. Could they hurt Miami there?
Yeah, you mentioned Graham Mertz. I mean, I think, before we, keep going with this Miami-Florida matchup, I think we all saw that first game of the year of Florida State out there in Dublin. And
Yeah.
we saw with DJU at quarterback, I think both programs could agree. I think we're both in a better place. You kind of saw what you get with the DJU where you can't really stretch the field and you kind of know what you're going to get with DJ. Graham Mertz is a little bit different, but when you look at him, individually, this is a guy that, isn't true to himself as far as stretching the field. I think out of 358 passing attempts, he only has 39 now. They're 20 yards or more in his career, which isn't very much, right? This is a guy that, you're going to be scheming offense of game plans like sweeps and quick passes, to your point, with his quick release, which is very similar to Cam Ward as well. But, I mean, this guy, got sacked 31 times this past season, which was 20 times more than the previous year with AR at quarterback, which is a lot more mobile quarterback. But this is also a guy that doesn't get a lot of touchdowns. He's never had more than 20 touchdowns in his career in one season. And 5 years of playing college football, for only having 8,000 plus yards and around 50 plus touchdowns. I mean, I like our chances with Cam Ward. I know he's coming from a smaller program in Washington State and Incarnate Ward before that. But in 3 years of college football, any guy that could throw the rock almost 11,000, 500 yards and almost 100 touchdowns, I like our chances. He got sacked 39 times at Washington State with only 7 interceptions. And he's never had the offensive line and the weapons that he'll be playing with. And compared to TVD last season, who had more interceptions and sacks on this roster, I mean, that's very telling.
That's a great stat about more interceptions than sacks. Hopefully both those numbers are very low this year in terms of Cam Ward not getting sacked much and not throwing many interceptions. But you talk about Miami's offensive line, defensive line as well. I expect Miami to be very good in that area. And again, like the cautionary tale from what happened to Florida State a couple of days ago was all those offseason lies were told about them having the best defensive line in the country, about Florida State having such a deep offensive line. They got beaten on both ends of the line of scrimmage by Georgia Tech. Now, Miami going up against Florida. Do you give Miami the advantage in the trenches?
Man, it's not even close, Dono. This is why I feel very confident in this Miami team going into this weekend, man. Similar to Florida State, they brought in guys from other programs with big names, from Alabama, from Georgia. But when you get, deep down into the stats and who they are as players, they didn't really have much productive or much proof in the pudding behind them, right? And you saw that week 1 against Georgia Tech. They didn't look so good. And I'm feeling the same way with some of these guys that Florida are relying on in the defensive line group. I mean, you're talking about there is not one defensive lineman on their roster that has over 100 career tackles. Miami has 4. Not only that, I mean, you're talking about a guy in Justice Boone who they're going to rely very heavily on in this game. He did not play last year. And in 3 years of playing college football, 27 tackles and only 1.5 sacks. I don't know about you, Donna, but that's not much productivity. A guy in Caleb Banks, who's another guy they're going to rely on because Lyons, who got injured for the year, is another guy that they're going to rely on. In 2 years of college football, only 21 tackles and 2 career sacks. Again, another guy that does not have much productivity. And, of course, Tyreek Sapp, who us Miami fans are somewhat familiar with from St. Thomas Aquinas, 2 years of college football, only 2 sacks and 44 tackles. So, I mean, they do not have the productivity to match the potential that they're wanting, especially week 1. These guys just have not been put in those situations. These guys are role players, right? When you look at Miami, we brought in Monstars. I mean, we are the new Space Jam, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to the defensive line. You got Elijah Austin that has over 100 tackles in his career with 13.5 sacks coming from Marshall, who's going to be put in situations where he doesn't have to be that guy, right? Same thing with Tyler Barron, another guy, 4 years of college football, over 100 tackles, 13.5 sacks. So I like those 2 guys to go along with a Simeon Barrow, who's only played 3 years of college football with 110 tackles and 10.5 sacks. So, again, we got productivity to match with some of these young guys like a Ruben Bain, a Cole McConaughey, Marquise Lightfoot, and others. And, again, I think the big name to watch for this first game definitely going to be a key door. He was hurt last year. He's coming for vengeance. I think he's got a lot to prove. Again, another guy that's played 4 years of college football, 113 tackles, 17 and a half sacks, and he's been the most productive player this fall camp, and I'm looking forward to him.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Akeem Mesidor. You know, a few weeks ago, we had an episode with Gio Milian where we talked about Akeem being one of the guys who's really, really stepping up in fall camp. And for those who watched the Canes Camp episode 4 video that just dropped yesterday, Akeem was prominently featured and shouted out by Miami's coaches as a guy who's absolutely dominating. Let's get to your prediction, Brad. Now, I'm not going to give my score prediction till later in the week, but since I have you today, have you formulated a score prediction yet, Brad? Does Miami win, and what's your final score?
I got something. I'm not solid on a certain number yet, but I am formulating something. You know, you go back to September 6, 2003. We had a guy by the name of Brock Berlin who wore his first Hurricane jersey in his debut at home against the Florida Gators. Ended up coming back and winning 38-33. Very close game. But then you have the other realm of that win. September 7th, 2002, where it was the blowout in the swamp. Ken Dorsey, my guy Andre Johnson, and others. I mean, we had a great trenches on both sides of the football. I'm feeling more of the blowout of September 7th, 2002, man. It's looking more like a 41-17 type game, if I'm not mistaken, man. I just really feel like third quarter, fourth quarter, it's going to be too much. And I wouldn't be surprised if after the third quarter, when they put on that Tom Petty, it doesn't get remixed to Trick Daddy real quick.
You know, for all the Canes fans who are heading up to Gainesville this hopefully Friday into Saturday, myself included, tell us about the pregame party and about the Friday night parties. And also, sorry to spring this on you so late, but is it okay if I do a live show out there? Because I want to get something going.
Absolutely, Donna. You are more than welcome to do that. I'll have plenty of room for you to do that. I'll have a table just for you. You could plug in the mic and we could get it going, man. But yes, Friday night, the festivities start at 5 o'clock at V Pizza downtown Gainesville. I'll be having a great event from 5 to 7. I only got a few tickets left, so make sure you reach out to me if you want to come. It'll be food included, alcoholic beer, drinks if you like. We'll have our guy Bo Bradbury doing a live painting that we'll be doing a silent auctioning on. We'll have a bunch of great fans and also some former players will be there as well. I can't wait to see everyone there. And then right across the street when we finish at 7 o'clock, we'll be making our way to a great event with Caneswear. They'll be hosting something at Capone's nightclub all the way till 2 in the morning. We got Lamar Thomas and a couple other great guys that'll be hosting. I'll be there. Bo Bradbury will also be doing another live painting there, man. So, you know, the festivity starts Friday, man, but I'll be kicking it off here on Monday.
And I want people to know I am going to come home with a Bradbury, just so I'm going to pop myself full screen here. I removed myself from the stage. Let's try it this way. You see, like, I think right there is where I'm going to, I left a space for a Bo Bradbury, if you could see that. So that's what I'm going to be rocking with starting Monday on the show. Brad Tejada, awesome job as always. Follow him on X at Tejada Brad. And Brad, is that the best place for people to reach you if they want to snag one of those tickets for the Friday party?
Yes, absolutely. Just hit my DM on X, and I'll be more than happy to help you out, man. I only got about 9 or 10 tickets left, man. So they'll be going out. We only can serve about 75 people in there, but it's going to be a great turnout, great event. Like I said, walking distance right across the street from Caneswear's event that we'll be doing till 2 in the morning.
I love it. Yeah, and I'll be out there as well Friday, so I'll see everybody out there. He is Brad Tejada. I am Alex Stano. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. If you're watching us on YouTube, smash that thumbs up button, subscribe. You listen to the audio version, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.